welcome into the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one rated sportsbook app out there. I'm your host, Rudolph, joined by the most wanted man on Twitter, AJ Haefele.
I gotta tell you, it's good to be on a platform that embraces my existence.
Not randomly suspended from YouTube, although we have had a similar thing happen on YouTube for no apparent reason. So,
look, just stop trying to censor me, okay? Social media.
Definitely a weird one, getting randomly suspended off of Twitter for no apparent reason. So,
it was not for no reason, okay? There was a very specific reason given. All right, I got suspended for violating the rules against posting violent threats.
Yes, all those violent threats that you posted.
Yes,
I remember.
All of me, the guy that is anti-fighting in hockey and doesn't like headshots in any sport. The most violent of individuals on Twitter.
Yeah, my teeth are good. My upper lip is still extremely numb, so I can't really move it. But look, I got teeth now. That's good. Probably good to have teeth, generally. But anyway, besides AJ being suspended from Twitter and me having teeth problems, it's been a wild couple of days around the NHL. Things be happening out there. So getting into it, let's really quickly go over yesterday. Edmonton acquired Duncan Keith, which is neat, I guess. And any significant thoughts on that move, AJ?
I don't understand it so much. I talked about it in the Discord a little bit yesterday. That I guess if under the assumption that Duncan Keith plays a third pairing role, which is a really, really big assumption given that he's Duncan Keith and NHL coaches are who they are.
They're gonna want to put him in the top four. Yeah.
Well, right, and they're gonna play him. Even if they limited him and put him in a third pairing role. The big thing that you're trying to get out of him is the leadership, the experience, the Stanley Cup attitude, right? The focus on winning and the maybe changing a little bit of their culture from we're just happy to be there to let's push, let's make something meaningful here. And instead, I think that they probably view him as a meaningful upgrade to their defense. They gave up a guy in Caleb Jones that had been a fine third pairing defender for a guy who has been a pretty bad top pairing defender for the last couple of years and in steep decline. I do think that Jeremy Colleton's system makes everybody look a little bit worse than they actually are. That team has been horrid defensively for a couple of years under him. It's been very go, and their defense has just been unbelievably leaky. And I don't think that it's entirely about the players. I do think that there's a little bit of the system in play. So I will be curious to see if not really that Keith's numbers bounce back, because I don't think that's a reasonable expectation, but maybe level off is more of a reasonable expectation, that they don't remain in steep decline.
I mean, that second year is the big fear for me, right? Because they're still going to be paying Keith. Then Darnell Nurse is a UFA after this next season. Ethan Bear is an RFA after this next season. That's where I think the Keith conversation gets scary for Edmonton.
It's insane to me that they took on that into the full boat.
Yep.
That they wanted that Chicago, a year after Chicago retained $1 million to move Brandon Saad for a defenseman that they could use, they wouldn't retain anything on Duncan Keith.
And Edmonton let him off the hook, basically.
Yeah, Edmonton was so fixated on Duncan Keith, and then the next day, Ryan Suter gets bought out.
Yep.
And it's like, I don't know that Ryan Suter would have signed in Edmonton, but he sure as hell would have been a superior option to chase at a much cheaper rate. So I just a total mess for them. Honestly, I just don't understand what. I take it back. I understand what Edmonton thinks they're doing, but it flies in the face of evidence and reality.
I have to think Anthony probably onto something here, talking about Clefbaum potentially missing next season as well. So
absolutely,
that's why they were in the market for a defenseman, specifically Duncan Keith in this case. But definitely a little bit of a weird one from Edmonton. That kind of kicked things off yesterday, and then today the hockey world went in even harder. First of all,
yesterday we all woke up to Pierre McGuire getting a job.
Yeah, well, that's true. Do we want to talk about that first? We can talk about that.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot to say, so we can kind of breeze by it. Pierre McGuire got a job. We don't have to put them on TV. It's with the Sens, so nobody's going to notice anyway. It's fine.
Yep.
I didn't even tweet about the Duncan Keith deal yesterday.
Yeah, McGuire off TV, working in the Senators' player development department. I think he was like vice president of player development.
Yeah, vice president of player department.
Very long title that basically sums up he's in player development. But
it comes with some pretty good money.
An interesting thing there, too, because he had been a name thrown around quite a bit. Potentially even for GM jobs around the league. Some teams taking that more seriously than others, I'm sure. But as we've talked about a lot from an Avs lens, that's another option gone on the ticking clock of how long can the Avs hold on to Chris MacFarland.
Yeah. To be determined.
Yep. It's an Avs problem that they will face, but not one that we're going to get into on today's show. The other quick note is Parise officially retired.
It's weird to me that was considered big news.
Yeah, like
a guy who'd lost his starting job and
has
is
not
like
been good
old.
in like 3 years. Yeah,
like that part was strange to me that was considered like big news, because it's like this wasn't like a generational like defining type player, right? Like he was an all-time great Predator, but why does the rest of the world care about that?
They don't.
Like that's an irrelevant franchise that has accomplished very, very little in its time. You know, I mean, it's a great model for small markets on how to build and invigorate a fan base and all of that. But other than that, like they made the one cool cup run, but other than that, dude, nobody cares. Like outside of Nashville, nobody cares about what the Preds are doing. They were the NHL's darling for 6 minutes, and then they got smoked in that final, and that was it.
From grace pretty quickly after that. Yeah,
they've steadily gotten worse as they've gotten more expensive since then.
Yep, worse and less likable in a hurry, basically.
Yeah.
So,
I just thought it was weird that was like NHL, like Parise retired, like everybody was making it a big deal, and it was like, okay, it wasn't like a guy who was in the middle of his prime or anything dropped a bomb. We all kind of saw this coming.
Yep, he was at the end of the rope anyway. As Chad is talking about, yes, EJ has waived his NMC.
Yeah, he agreed to that like 3 months ago.
That was everybody knew that was coming.
Yeah.
So this is just kind of making it official, I guess. But the big news, and I want to talk about this from Minnesota's perspective first before we get into the Avs side of it. Minnesota buying out both Parise and Suter. That is a lot of dead cap money.
Yeah.
I mean, it at first it's frees up $10 million in the immediate for them, right? But a couple of years down the line, they're going to have nearly $15 million of dead cap. And it's really hard to build a hockey team when more than like 15% of your cap, nearly, if it's flat still, it'd be nearly 20% of their cap is just dead money.
The Parise thing, I think everybody has seen coming.
Sure, he was scratched this year. Yeah,
we talked about it last week as we were doing the expansion draft stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about the NMCs, and those guys could waive them, and it makes sense if they did, and they're just not those players anymore. The relationship between the Wild and Parise has not been good for a while. Healthy scratch in the postseason.
Yeah,
they tried to trade him to the Islanders a year ago, which is where I think he goes. I think it would be smart money would be to bet on him going to the Islanders. That one, I think everybody. I don't think that one is a really big deal. I think everybody kind of felt like that was coming.
Yeah, look, they had to do something with him, whether it was move him or buy him out or whatever, and that ended up happening. And you're looking at it, and if it was just Parise, you'd say, all right, in 2 years they have $7.5 billion of dead cap. That hurts, but you can work around it a little bit.
You can live with that.
It's when you add on Suter's buyout of the exact same price that they're in trouble. This immediate year, I don't see how they can't try to go all in this year, and then they're going to be stuck in kind of cap hell for the next 3 years because of both buyouts.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's that bad.
You don't think $14.5 million is that bad?
I mean, looking at the. That's a lot of money, man.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, dude. It's so much money. And yeah. And they get through it eventually, but
the Suter one doesn't make sense to me. He's still a serviceable player, which is what the show's going to be about. But
yeah,
I don't understand the Suter one this year. Doing it right now. If they asked him to waive and he didn't say, and he said, I'm not doing that, then I could understand where they're coming from. But it sounds like that didn't even happen.
They just were done with him, yeah.
Yeah, they were just like, hey, we're going to take the two guys who we turned the keys over to the franchise to. And really this whole thing is really frustrating because they signed matching 13-year, $98 million deals. Yeah. Their owner turns around and cries poor immediately after, which helps lead to the last lockout. And we had to listen to nonstop, the state of hockey circle jerk that took place. And how the Wild were going to show everybody what was up, and
what again?
The power of the hometown roots, and all the local boys coming back home to bring the state of hockey back to glory. And
they didn't
give me a break.
They didn't win anything. Rounds. They didn't even make a cup finals.
They didn't even make a conference final. They won 2 rounds in 9 years.
You hate to see it. And obviously, yeah, I mean, really, they tried to build that era of the Wild around those two players, and it's ultimately going to be considered a failure. There is no doubt about that. And this is the last painful notch is going to be over the next couple of years through 24-25 with that cap hit just sitting there.
Yeah.
So, gonna be tough for Minnesota.
This is a real mess.
We can take our first period break there as we are brought to you by Breckenridge Brewery, the official beer of DNVR. You can grab it down at the DNVR bar, but also keep your eyes out for the Good Company Hard Seltzer. Get their 15-can sampler pack at a local liquor store near you. Absolutely delicious stuff. Can't recommend these guys enough. I absolutely love them. If I wasn't getting all this dental work done, I would be drinking one right now, probably. But, teeth and stuff. Also, also brought to you by, as AJ has dubbed their name, the the most evil name of any corporation in Ball Corp, but while the name may sound evil, they're actually doing a lot of good out there. Obviously, y'all know about a lot of their renewable things that they're working on, including the aluminum cans inside Ball Arena. They work on a ton of aluminum cans, to say aluminum cups, obviously. They also do a whole lot of cans. They're hiring for a ton of that. You can go to jobs.ball.com and search for Golden or text Golden to 77222 to see what they have available for jobs. I think they're hiring upwards of like 400 people at their Golden plant. So lots of options out there. They pay a living wage. They treat their employees very well, which unfortunately can be hard to find sometimes these days. So, they're actually willing to pay you decently and treat you right. So check them out today. Again, text Golden to 77222 to see what Ball has to offer. Also, you can sign up once you get that job, start making a little bit of money. Give a membership to us here at DNVR. Get the annual membership. Get yourself a free shirt. You get bigger beers at the bar. You get access to the DNVR lounge that AJ was talking about earlier if you want to chat with people directly. A bunch of other awesome stuff as well. Be sure to check us out. Check out all of our exclusive content as well. AJ writes awesome stuff, as does Evan over there. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. I'm going to go to Parise first because there's basically no reason the Avs should have any interest in him, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, he's like let's just go with yeah. There's really, look, if you dropped him on your fourth line next to
on a league minimum deal or whatever.
Sure. Yeah, like next to Logan O'Connor and Shane Bowers or whoever's going to be the 4th seed next year. I don't know. You could do worse, right? But that's that conversation. Right.
You're talking about potentially like a 12th forward or something like that. Not significant impact.
Yeah.
So Parise just not that interesting for reasons we've already mentioned. He's already struggling to stay in a lineup like Minnesota's. So
yeah, there isn't really any legitimate interest there.
Now Suter, on the other hand, I have to imagine is going to garner quite a bit of interest from teams in free agency.
Yeah, so Suter at 36. Let's just start this conversation and be honest that he's not the guy that he was.
No doubt.
But he's also still okay.
Yeah, can provide you with decent, effective numbers. It's not, as you mentioned, nowhere near what it was on the defensive side for him, especially.
Yeah,
but he can still be a net positive player.
Right, and this is across 3 years here, and it's going to look a little bit worse than the other stuff that we're going to get into. But
yeah,
he's driving play, which is still encouraging. He's a bad power play player. In Colorado, you wouldn't have to worry about that.
Yeah, he's not touching the power play here.
Yeah, you would not care at all. The PK is really where you would want to get him into the lineup, but overall, you look at him at even strength. If we can go to the next one that we have here, you look at him at even strength. He's driving a little bit of play. He's allowing more defensively than you would love, as you can see right there on defense. He's got that plus 5%. It's not great. It's not awful though. It's just not awful.
Well, does he play the right?
Yeah, he can. He can do both.
Did he play the right in Minnesota? I guess
I don't think. I don't know. I would ask Ian that,
because I'm looking at that defensive chart. I'm like, wow, that right side is really blue, and that left side is really red. so it's not great either way. It isn't, but
you see on the power play, it's bad on the power play. And then defensively, it's or on the PK, it's okay.
Yeah,
you're right around league average there.
Yeah, you can live with the PK for sure.
Yeah.
I think someone I saw even mentioned in chat, you're doing better than a Patrick Nemeth in that situation for sure with someone like a Ryan Suter.
Definitely. And then, I mean, if you start to get into you start to get into, I assumed he had played left with Spurgeon and Dumba there as both righties.
All right. Well, the left side of that chart was pretty yikes.
Good to know. It's the isolated stuff that I think is interesting, where you really start to get into, offensively. I was surprised when I got into this. So this is with Suter offensively. The -1% does not look great, right? Like,
it's a lot right in front though.
And it's not wonderful.
It isn't. But when you look at it relative.
Yeah, and then you go to the next one and you look at what Minnesota did without Suter on the ice. Their offense really fell off hard.
Yep. -13 without. So that's a 12% better with Suter on the ice.
Right. So you're talking about with Suter on the ice is right around league average. He's pushing the play in the right direction.
Yep.
That's all of that is really encouraging. That's something that you definitely want to see. And again, we're not talking about a top pairing player here. Right.
You're not going to ask him to play 30 minutes a night like he used to.
So you go. That's what he looks like offensively. Defensively, it's less encouraging. It's not as good. With Suter, like the -13% on its own is very good. That's still solid.
But take into account Minnesota systems.
Right. And without it, it's -14. So it's basically the same without him.
Bang
Minnesota got to where they got by being a really good, solid defensive team.
Yep.
So that right there was really encouraging to me, that it was not just a result of Minnesota being Minnesota, being a team that relied on their defense and really it was not all of him.
It wasn't all of him either way, right? You aren't seeing him drag that defense down.
Right.
And you're not really seeing him get carried by that defense either.
But you did see him elevate the driving of the play the other direction.
Yep.
So that was really encouraging. The other thing, the other aspect of this, the isolated numbers on the penalty kill. What do those look like? Yep. Because with Suter, look, -11% is really good.
That is very good for a penalty kill.
Yeah, that's really encouraging. And then you see the impact without Suter,
and it ends up. ...
It's still really good.
Yeah,
but again, that just shows you that it was not him getting carried.
Yep. Exactly.
So that, I think you put all of those things together and you say, look, this is at 36. I don't know that I'm giving him a multi-year deal.
I think it would have to be a 1 year to be interested in it. Yep.
It's going to have to be a 1 year deal. For me, if we're talking Colorado, it would have to be a 1 year deal. And to be honest with you, it would not be much money. I would be talking about $1 million, $2 million tops here. I'm not paying him $4 million. I
think
he's a 36-year-old.
$2 million wouldn't feel great, even, honestly.
Yeah, straight up. Like when you look at his situation, and the only reason that he would be interested in something like that, one, I mean, if you get bought out by an organization that you dedicated your entire prime to. Granted, they paid him handsomely for it, but you dedicate your prime to it and they just buy you out like that at the end of your career and say, get away from us.
Little mad about it, probably. Yeah.
I was talking to Z about it this morning and I said, it wouldn't the first thing that you do be to call up every single one of the Central Division teams, engage their interest, and be like,
I want to stick it to that team. Yeah.
And be like, you guys have first dibs.
Yep.
Like, wouldn't, and one, I mean, you're also established there. So if you stay in a Central Division team, you're going to be close. You know, I could also see like a Detroit paying too much, getting into that and all, you know, but also like a Central Division team for the most part is going to be close to Minnesota. It won't be a long plane ride. You know, for what I assume is a very established family dynamic in Minnesota. So,
yeah,
you know, like Minnesota.
He's been there for a long time now, so
yeah, and I just think that if I'm Suter, that's what I want to do. I would be a little miffed by this, and I'd be like, all right, let's do that. And then, as Ryan points out here in the comments, you're also going to want to go to a good team. At 36 years old, what is he going to do? Why is he going to sign with the rebuilding team?
Yep.
And the other aspect of this, because money always talks. the big part of this for me is that his salary at the end of that contract was his actual salary, actual money that he was going to be taking home was not very much money.
Yeah.
Like it was $6 million for this next season. And then after that, it was $4 million combined for the next 3 seasons. Yep. So you're talking about $10 million. Of the $98 million that he signed for, he's already made 88 of it.
Mm-hmm.
He's already made 88 of it.
He's made a lot of money. Doesn't need another payday necessarily.
He's still going to be making money from
this buyout. Yeah.
Yeah, from the buyout for the next several years. So this is why when I say get him for $1 million, that would be the only reason. That would be the only reason he would be interested in something like that. He's made his money. He's made $88 million from the Wild. So, you know, getting him in for cheap, you know, and to me, it makes sense, right? Now, in a vacuum, there has to be other things that happen. I'm coming from a place of, I don't think Ryan Graves is going to be here anymore. Yeah. Between the trade rumors that we've heard, between Colorado aggressively shopping Graves around the league, talking to Vancouver and talking to Arizona, and a number of other teams have checked in on Graves. This is the guy that steps in and takes the job that Graves had last year at the end of the year next to Sam Girard.
This is exactly what I want to get into, but we do need to hit our second break first, as we are brought to you by Solace Meds. You can head down to their location just a couple blocks away from the DNVR bar, or they also have locations in Fort Collins, Wheat Ridge, and Denver, another location too. You get 20% off when you use code DNVR20 for your purchase on solacemeds.com. That's SOLACE meds.com. And they have various other discounts from 10 to 25% on in-store products as well. I highly recommend the pickup. It's super easy to order your stuff, get in there, get what you need, get out, and be done with it. Go back home and vibe it out. So yeah, check out Solace Meds. While you're at it, when you get the munchies, head on over to HassleCattleCompany.com. Order yourself some delicious meats, whether it be their Wagyu burger, any of their other steaks. They're all absolutely delicious. They make amazingly good meat. I always recommend the Wagyu burger at the DNVR bar to people, and then people get back to me and they say I undersold it to them. So
it's funny because you can tell somebody, go get it. It's super good. That's tasty. And then they eat it and they're like, hey, you weren't lying to me. And it was like,
why would I lie?
What was the reason for me misleading you?
Yeah, exactly. You can use that DNVR 10 code to get 10% off at Hassle Cattle. And if you want to do a group order, you can order $200 or more and get free shipping. Of course, we're also brought to y'all by DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 rated sportsbook app out there. They have amazing odds boosts every single day. And with the fight now over DraftKings is giving you a $1 chance to earn $150 in site credit. All you have to do is pick one of the two teams left in the NBA. And let's face it, right now, it looks like you pick the Suns and you're doing great because the Suns look pretty darn unstoppable. And if that team wins that you pick, which you should pick the Suns again, or you can fade me, I guess, and pick Milwaukee if you like, your $1 turns into $150 when you sign up with that DNVR code and a new account. So jump on that today. Of course, if basketball's not your thing, they have great odds and promotions for all the other sports as well, whether it be hockey futures now or baseball or football. Can you still bet on Aaron Rodgers coming to Colorado? I'm actually not sure, but
I don't know.
Because that one's very hot and cold. It's on again, off again. But plenty of stuff to bet on. KHL, Swedish leagues, Finnish leagues, you name it in hockey. You can bet on it. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app today and use that DNVR code. Again, you have to use the DNVR code on a new account to get the $1 into $150 in free credits opportunity when you bet on the basketball team of your choice. Limited time only, must be 21 or older, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. New customers only, restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. All right.
It's third. This conversation and that's taking place in the chat is hilarious. It's not just moving Sam Girard is not something that's taking place. It should disavow yourself of the notion that it's even remotely possible at this point.
He's getting protected. He's not getting traded.
Yeah.
The end of the
only kind of package in which he would get traded would be for a very, very, very high end player.
Talking about like Jack Eichel kind of trade.
I mean, probably I wouldn't. I don't even know that I'm talking about Jack Eichel, just given the fact that who knows what's going on with his back, right?
Sure.
But I'm talking a high end NHL player. Seth Jones is not that.
He's not high end, indeed.
Yeah, the Seth Jones's reputation and Seth Jones's reality are two very different things.
But I did.
We also did an entire story on Seth, or an entire pod on Seth Jones. So if that's what you're looking for,
go look up the Seth Jones pod.
Yeah, go. It's in the archives. We did a whole show about it.
But I did want to get into the Ryan Graves situation, which I guess would be interesting to replace a Ryan with a Ryan. But
yep.
As far as role is concerned, it would be pretty easy to drop Suter in to that exact same role. Yep. One, assuming the Avs would be interested in Suter around a deal that we talked about, they'd be saving a couple $1 million.
Yep.
Two, if Graves is getting moved out in a trade, first of all, you talk about what assets you're getting back, but secondarily, that means you're going to lose even more cap hit in the upcoming expansion draft.
Yep.
So, from the financial side of it, it makes all the sense in the world from the Avs. The question is,
you would keep in mind that Suter isn't signing anywhere until
he can't sign till free agency.
Yeah, this is not like, oh well, he's gonna go sign right now.
But I mean, teams might have a decent idea of if he's going to sign or not.
Like they should of course talk to him.
Yeah. So they're going to do that side of their homework. And, definitely within the legal bounds of the NHL and not back channeling at all, because no team would ever do that. But, but the Graves situation, can the Avs get quality value out of a Ryan Graves trade before the expansion draft?
Sure, definitely.
You think there are teams out there that have the room to protect that extra defenseman?
Yeah, I think we saw it. We went through the entire league last week, and I think we saw it, man. Like there were teams out there now. Are they the ones, like, let's just use Arizona as the example, okay? If Arizona and Colorado made a Graves deal, which they've talked about, then if you're Arizona, you're protecting OEL, you're protecting Chikrin, and then you would just protect Graves.
Graves is the third.
Our third defenseman that we protected was Lyubushkin.
True. pretty easy to pick up Graves and not worry about protecting him. Then,
yeah. So there are teams, even Vancouver. When we talked about them, remember the half of Vancouver's problem is that they don't have anybody signed.
Yep.
So they protect Tyler Myers, and then after that, it was like, who do you protect?
Right, they're forced into protecting two randos, basically.
Yeah, and then they just protect Graves from there and move on.
Yep, that's true.
So it would depend, obviously, on the franchise. There would be some franchises where you're like,
So what's a realistic return then? Yeah, as the chat is.
I mean, if it's Graves on his own, it's not going to be a ton.
You wouldn't, right?
They're not going to be able to get Connor Garland for Ryan Graves straight up. They're going to have to add to that.
Sure. Is that the most realistic route then? Is some kind of package deal for a decent piece?
I also think that that's the most realistic way for them to lose. If they want to sneak a JT Compher off their books.
So if they're really looking to move money out, you kind of
you
Compher, throw in a pick or something.
You bundle them both up and you move them somewhere, and that's what you do.
Okay.
Because those are you look in Colorado and you're like, we have a money problem here, not a player problem. But if you're another franchise, you're looking at it and you're like, okay, well, these are two guys that can step in and help us be more competitive immediately.
Yep.
I know that the Avs fan base has largely twisted themselves into a knot to pretend that JT Compher isn't an NHL player anymore, but he's got some level of value in the league.
Mm-hmm. He's probably overpaid, but
yeah. I mean, certainly overpaid the version that we saw last year.
Well, right. That's the other question with Compher is, is last year the new normal for him, or is he the guy he was the first 3 years of his career?
Right. Which one feels more of an anomaly?
Right.
1 year or the 3 years before that?
Obviously the 1 year, but
I'll let you decide. We are all going to interpret that the way that we want to.
Yep.
So, and then that even if that happened, even if Graves moves out like that, you still have a numbers game.
Yep. It's tight, and realistically, you mentioned Connor Garland. Is that the type of player that the Avs would be targeting? Essentially a Brandon Saad replacement?
Well, I mean, he is a guy that they are targeting, that they've looked at. So just in that specific instance, yes, like that's, I did not randomly pull Connor Garland's name there. But
I don't know what you know and what you're allowed to say. So yeah,
that's not like a big shock to anybody. Arizona, the problem with the Garland is that the Colorado would then have to pay him,
right?
And he's coming off a big year, and blah 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 blah. So there are complications to all these different avenues. But that's where again, like, you drop a Compher into that deal if they're amenable to it, and
it's pretty best case scenario for the Avs at that point, right? Because now you're talking about potentially getting almost all of the bad contracts off the books. If you're the Avs, you get Graves off the books, you get Compher off the books. At that point, Seattle's very likely taking Jonas Donskoy, unless they're just taking some random dude at the bottom of your roster. But or if Nichushkin's exposed, it's Nichushkin, then whatever.
Yeah, or Joster, whatever. You're losing something. One
of those four, whichever forward they end up exposing is likely the one they're losing at that point. But looking through that, I guess the other question becomes, can the Avs do better than Ryan Suter? I know we've talked about Jamie Alexiak as a potential option before on the show. Is
Suter
like a plan B, a plan C to fill that role almost?
Yeah, I would say he's a backup option. I would start with a combination of Alexiak and Adam Larsson first, and then go from there. Check in on Suter. Depending on what the prices of those guys may end up being, both of those. Excuse me, both of those guys still have to hit market
for sure.
So there's still a long way to go there. The expansion draft still has to happen. All these teams still have to lose players, and they have to make the deals that they're going to deal. And
protection lists aren't even out yet. So
yeah, and it's been fun to watch everybody be like, oh, they're going to learn from that. The NHL GMs do dumb shit all the time. They're going to be dumb and they're going to be desperate and they're going to overreact and they're going to try and lose money and they're going to set Seattle up nicely. Seattle is playing this intelligently. They're looking to extract huge prices out of teams, and I think they're going to get that. They don't need 10 teams to agree. They just need a couple. I think they're going to find those.
Never doubt at least one GM pulling a Ted Stepien. All right.
Well, and we talked last week about, hey, the buyout season is coming up. That's going to put unexpected guys onto the market. This is the perfect example of it.
Yep. That is basically spot on.
Like Ryan, like Parise, we all kind of were like, this would be reasonable, whatever. You could see this happening. But Suter is going to be a sought-after player. Like, just flat out. There are going to be teams that are very interested in him for all the reasons that we've run down in this show. He's not going to be expensive. He's not going to be a long-term asset. He's a guy that can still help you out in a specific role. You don't have to go crazy here. This is not a 3-year deal for Francois Beauchemin, and if it is, that team is making the mistake.
If you are a serviceable NHL defenseman, I can think of 32 teams in the league that will at least have minimal interest in you.
Yeah.
And some of them probably significant interest.
If Steve Yzerman wasn't running Detroit and Ken Holland was still there, I would fully expect Ken Holland to be throwing multiple years at Ryan Suter. And with Adam Larsson still unsigned and they have just traded for Duncan Keith, would it be the biggest surprise in the world if he turned around and said, we're good on Larsson, let's go give 2 years to Ryan Suter instead?
I mean, it would be funny, though.
Yeah, I mean, it would be classic Edmonton. But, like, would anybody be actually surprised if it worked out that way?
No. I would not be surprised for a second. But
I don't know how anybody could be at this point, like they just
there's a
keep doing it to themselves.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
At a certain point, it's no longer the unexpected. It's just what they
absolutely. Do. So I think we're talking about him in Colorado and all that, but there's
a very decent chance some team ponies up for him for sure.
Yeah. There have to be other things that take place before Colorado's like a realistic option, though. Yep. They've got to move on. They've got to move on from Graves. Even after that, though, I mean, you're still talking about Byram, Timmins, and Johnson are all still sitting there. So what's
more to assess there? And I think that, again, to get back to where we kind of started this section of the conversation, if someone like Jamie Alexiak, you can sit there and say this is almost certainly an upgrade, a noticeable upgrade on maybe like a Connor Timmins, right, in the immediate.
Sure.
It's harder to say that about a 36-year-old Ryan Suter.
Yeah. Well, and it's also harder to say Jamie Alexiak is going to be better than Connor Timmins for the next 5 years.
For 5 years, I agree. In the immediate,
look, I'm happy to take Jamie Alexiak, but you still have Connor Timmins there. Like, you still have an NHL player who played a healthy chunk of your season, played for you every game in the playoffs, was okay to good in his first real postseason action.
Well,
Like,
and there are multiple ways this path can go, right? Maybe you believe in Timmins a lot, and that's more of a reason to target Suter as the guy that say, hey, look, we want you to split time with a Connor Timmins.
yeah.
You're 36 now. You can take a game off anytime you need it, and we can play Timmins and not worry about it if we're the Avs. But you get into twisty turny paths down at that point that we don't need to get into too much. But the point being is the Avs have a bunch of options to look at for that position.
Like Ryan Suter goes on the market, that makes life a little better for the Avs in that more competition, more teams, more decent players that are out there. You can talk yourself into a lot of different things. And, we're talking about like Connor Timmins, Bowen Byram, Eric Johnson, like how much. I think the interesting part of the John Johnson conversation now is more of how much do you really rely on him to play for you next year? Like, okay, you go and you get one of these guys. Is Connor Timmins like just chilling until EJ has the inevitable injury?
Could be. And I think you hit the nail on the head with EJ there. He has one season of 80 games in the last 6 years. And most of the time he's 60, 59, 46. Obviously last year he played 4 games. It's hard to expect him to play every night. He's just not reliably healthy. So there may need to be a plan in place.
And that he's not reliably healthy. That's where it's how much do you like every year you have to plan for injuries. You buoy against that, but we're talking about like the Connor Timmins shouldn't be going back to the AHL. None of that, right? Like
Timmins should be their 7th D at worst. I do believe that, but
if he's their 7th D at worst, then something has really something pretty good has happened.
Yeah, sure. They've acquired a solid piece or whatever, but
yeah, Alexiak just played a full season, so just saying. He actually has 2 seasons. He missed no games last year, and I don't know how many games Dallas played the year before, but he could not have missed many.
Yeah, last year he missed 2 games.
2? They played 71 games?
Yeah, well,
okay.
71. The Avs played 71. Every team had it somewhere.
That's why I'm saying he might have missed no games. I don't know how many games Dallas played last season.
Fair enough.
Every team was kind of all over the board.
Yeah.
So he's had 2 healthy seasons in a row.
Yep.
But otherwise, fair point. He's always been kind of an injured dude.
He's also younger than EJ, to be fair.
Yeah, he also doesn't have like a wrecked knee that consistently pops up as problematic.
Yeah. You'll notice EJ's I guess EJ was 31 for his last healthy year, but he had a couple of close to healthy years in his prime right around age 28. So that's where Alexiak is at. So you, at least in the next couple of years, you're assuming you're going to get the most out of Alexiak that you could, barring freak injuries and whatever. But
dog, none of us see a problem with that. If Byram's good enough to be in the top 4, he's good enough to be in the top 4.
Yep.
I don't have a problem with it, man.
Byram's not Gerard I would run that top 4 all day, every day, and love it, man.
Yeah, Byram is not a small man. He's not hulking, but he's not a small guy, and he doesn't play a small game.
Yeah.
I have the only issue with Byram is that he is not. We don't know who he is in the NHL yet. He has 19 games and 2 points. So we just don't really have a feel for him yet.
In that list, the only guy who really plays small is Gerard. Makar doesn't play small. Taves doesn't play small particularly either.
Yeah.
So
what did veteran leadership do for him 2 years ago when they had Ian Cole try and cough up the Calgary series.
Actually, we had this question on another YouTube video I posted. AJ, what is your take on Sam Girard around the league? Would he be a top 4 defenseman on every team in the league?
Every team in the league? There are definite I think he would be
30 of 32.
Yeah. Sam Girard would be a top 4 defenseman on look, I'm doing this blindly. I would say comfortably at least 28 teams.
All right. So the vast majority of the league at very least. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
In any case, any final.
And I would say, that would be. I don't think he would be a top 4 in Tampa Bay.
He might be 5 there.
It really depends on how you feel about him versus like Chernak.
Well, what look did the team want to go with, right?
Yeah.
But we don't have to get any further into that conversation, really. Look, the Avs have Sam Girard on a great contract, and they're keeping him. End of story. But final thoughts on the Suter situation, where the Avs stand, and the craziness that's starting to kick off in the NHL, because I expect there's going to be a lot more talk leading up to this expansion draft. Happy that
EJ waived. I'm not worried about Landeskog territory yet. I've always said that I'll only get worried when other teams are allowed to start talking to him.
Fair enough.
So if he's not protected on Colorado's list on Saturday, and Seattle's allowed to start talking to him on Sunday, then I'm going to be worried about it. Until that happens, I'm not worrying about it, but we're coming close to it. It's getting close enough now that I understand why people are getting nervous. People are getting uncomfortable. I get it. I understand where they're coming from. You want to see it happen. You want to see it get done so you can have some peace of mind about it. There's a lot going on, though. So, yeah, Joel Edmondson, my gosh.
Well, what will be, will be. So we'll wait and see. You can hear it all on this podcast live every single weekday. Be sure to like and subscribe here on YouTube. Does a ton for us, for all y'all. If you really want to catch all of our stuff, hit the notification bell as well. We will be back tomorrow, probably back to talking draft-related, draft-related things, that is.
We were trying to get to it today, and then
the league had stuff to do. So
the things happen. So
yeah, if there's breaking news, we'll talk about the breaking news. So one way or another, you can hear us 1 p.m. every single day Mountain Time. We hope to see you again. Thank you for watching, listening. We will catch you on the next one.